much, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And welcome. And in today's incredibly topical show, Neil Armstrong walks on the moon, some angry cyclists, and I throw a sandwich out of the window. All that is to come. But first, Aston Martin has just launched a new car. And here's Richard Hammond to tell us all about it.
This is the new V8 Vantage.
And, well, it's not an ugly car, is it? I mean, I'm not sure about this colour. You'd be on the phone to your doctor if your wee came out like this. The shape itself.
It's out of the way.
And as the smallest, punchiest, sportiest car in the Aston lineup, it's fast too.
Go! 0 to 60 takes 3.5 seconds. Oh, for God's sake. Oh, God. You're not going to be embarrassed by 911 Carens. Top speed, 195.
But here's the thing. Astons have always been beautiful and fast in a straight line. But when you're making a sports car, that's the easy part. It was when you dug deeper under the skin into the areas you couldn't see that in the past they often came up short.
The trouble is, the company has never had the money or the manpower of Porsche or Ferrari, and you could sense that in their cars. They just didn't feel as well made or well engineered as some rivals.
That means they sold mainly to people listening to their hearts and not their heads. Because your heart says, I want an Aston, even when your head says, that door doesn't fit properly.
But this is 2018. Good looks and speed aren't enough if bits are coming off in your hand. This car can't be nice to drive for an Aston. It can't be well made for an Aston. It's got to be good, full stop.
Let's do this.
Yeah, in an AMG, this engine doesn't make this noise. In a Merc, it's all power bass. Whereas Aston Martin have added some British gravel to the mix.
So, it's handsome, quick, tuneful, and feels well built. But now we come to the acid test. How the new Vantage handles corners.
So, let's see what's what. Built an all-new chassis, a shorter version to the one under the DB11. And it's the first Aston Martin to be fitted with an electronic diff. A very expensive but very valuable weapon of war. Oh my God! Then we come to the engine. It's a 4-litre V8. It has twin turbos. It makes 510 horsepower. Try that. Oh yeah! Oh God! Yeah, it works. This is in control.
Get a bloody move on.
In the past, you could buy an Aston and love it, but still know deep down that a 911 was a better car.
Hurry up! Good car. I can see her.
Can you really?
I really can see her. I agree with you on that. It's a brilliant, brilliant car. But one thing I ought to mention, you know what? Here we go! Let's find how fast Abby can get one around the observatory. way there up that unusual and frankly stupid square steering wheel, and already we're at the drop down into your name here. Cutting it wide for old lady's house, keeping it clean round there, and now the short squirt down to substation. Across the line.
It's exciting.
It does. It's like an old-fashioned racing car, moving around.
The old days.
That's a good-looking lap, that. Right, let's find out where it ended up on our lap board, shall we? Here we go. Look at exactly the same speed as a 911 GT3 RS.
Yeah, and when you think the Aston doesn't have a massive wing and scaffolding in the back, that is pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Yeah, but never mind that. Look, it's no faster than a BMW M5.
Yes, but I think what that says, James, is the M5 is seriously quick.
Now, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the first landings on the moon, and I thought I should take a little celebratory look back at that truly historic mission.
James, this isn't a grand tour of whatever is in your head. You do know that.
No, but I promise there will be some cars in this film. Eventually.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
When President Kennedy made that speech to Congress in 1961, he gave the scientists at NASA a planet-sized headache. Nevertheless, the brains at NASA knuckled down and throughout the 1960s set about developing and testing the rockets and the technology that would be needed to crack this monumental nut. However, machinery on its own was not enough. Equally important to the success of the space program were the astronauts. Now, these men were generally of a type. They were fighter jocks and test pilots, and they were very familiar with moving around at very high speed. So, and I did promise we'd get some cars into this, when it came to moving around on the face of the Earth, there was one car they favoured above all others. The Corvette, America's premier sports car. Go.
Yes, John Glenn, holder of supersonic flight records and the first American to orbit the Earth, wrote this. Hey.
Just brilliant.
Loving between the American astronaut and the Corvette started with Alan Shepard.
The Corvette, America's premier sports car.
Away. Yes, John Glenn, holder of supersonic flight records and the first American to orbit the Earth, wrote this.
Well,
matter of us. Slight slow there. Easy. Rubbish. Oh no. It has an engine of just under 600cc, 2 cylinders, 0 to 60, 35 seconds. Hey. In between the American astronaut and the Corvette started with Alan Shepard, the first American in space in 1961. And on his safe return to Earth, he was given a free Corvette by General Motors, a sort of medal for services to the country.
By 1969, just inside Kennedy's deadline, NASA was ready to try landing some men on the moon. The astronauts chosen were Buzz Aldrin, who drove a Corvette, Neil Armstrong, who drove a Corvette, and Mike Collins, who drove a Beetle. Presumably that's why they left him in the command module and didn't let him walk on the lunar surface.
Eagle, Houston, we have you now. Do you read over? Loud and clear.
When the astronauts finally approached the surface of the moon, the landing was not without drama.
Okay, all flight controllers, gonna go for landing.
The designated spot was full of craters,
Eagle, Houston, you're a go for landing.
forcing Armstrong to fly manually and look for another place to set down.
4 forward, drift into the right a little. Okay, engine stop. Post control, both autos, engine command override off. We copy you down, Eagle. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
When they finally landed, they had just 20 seconds of fuel remaining. But no matter, they were down on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Back on Earth, a hero's welcome awaited. And once he got home, Armstrong, like so many astronauts, would swap the seat in his spacecraft for a seat in a Corvette. And when I say Corvette, I mean this actual Corvette, this one. This was his. This is Neil Armstrong's Corvette.
Hurry up!
The first person to set foot somewhere other than the Earth. Go! Get faster. The owner of this car, when he realised what it was he'd found, decided not to restore it. He would leave it exactly as it was. He would just do enough to make it run. So he hasn't done the paint, he hasn't replaced bits in here. This is all exactly as he found it. There's patina on the bonnet there. There's a scuffed bit on the door. It's real. Hello, Rev Counter. Neil Armstrong's looked at you, hasn't he? Oh, I think a Huey is coming. There's...
Get a bloody move on.
Those are the two sounds of the 60s, aren't they? That one, and the sound of Neil Armstrong speaking from the moon. Neil Armstrong.
Get out of the way. Anyway, that's enough about space now. I want to move it on because I came into the office the other day and told these two that the Citroen C3 Aircross that I'd been driving was very good. And they said it wasn't.
Because it isn't.
Yes, it is. And I decided to prove that it is by doing one of those very thorough tests where we cover all the things that matter in a car of this type.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this going to be one of those stupid films where you do ridiculous tests to discover if a car can, I don't know, drive faster than itself?
No. This is the car in question. It's a 5-seater, front-wheel drive hatchback. Prices start at £14,720, and it looks like... Let's do this. See out of, because... windows are made from glass, and all the controls fall easily to hand because they're on the dashboard or the steering wheel rather than under the carpet in the boot. Go. You may be wondering, what makes it so special? Well, to find out, I've decided to break the test down into segments so that all the important questions can be answered. To find out, we've come here to the banked Millbrook Bowl. Here we go! Top speed. And here we go. Go. Savage acceleration. But can it do better? Okay, what I've done now is hooked up to the back end of a Bentley Bentayga. Now, this is a car with a top speed of 180 miles an hour. What it's doing is it's punching a hole in the air for me, and I'm driving along in a vacuum. So that should mean I go faster. Let's find out. Go.
Now we go on to the really fast bit.
Oh, truth, it's like being in Bluebird. My only one. So that should mean I go faster. Let's find out. Go. It's like being in Bluebird. My only worry is... So that should mean I go faster. Let's find out.
Have a go a bit faster. Get the bloody move on. Glory hole.
Oh, truth, it's like being in Bluebird. My only worry is that I just saw a single magpie, and it is Friday the 13th as I do this. So now I'm going to ease out of this dangerous situation. Well, if the space is smaller than the aircross, then the answer is no.
Go. Will do.
And with that sorted out, it's time for one of the most important. If the space is smaller than the aircross, then the answer is no.
Go.
with that sorted out, it's time for one of the most important tests. If the space is smaller than the aircross, then the answer is no. Go. And with that sorted out, it's time for one of the most important tests a little car can face. To find out, I've... Get a bloody mover! It's Booty McBoatface! The challenge I'd come up with was to see if the one-ton seat... Let's do this. I, however, disagree. Let's do this! Go. Oh, Christ, there's some elasticity in that rope. Ooh, hello. Why is it going backwards? This is a bit of a worry. Is that ship? The ship's going back. Look. The ship is going back. What? The situation's bad. As we reattached the tow rope, I wondered what had gone wrong. Why did he put his engines in reverse as a sort of amusing joke? I mean, he is Greek, the captain. We're not German. We didn't mess your economy up. With the rope reattached, we began the test again. Here we go. That's just clutch spin. That's just clutch. That's clutch. Traction control off. It's the only solution. Hang on. I think that ship is moving. I think we're getting further and further with each pull. Go. The power and strength of the Citroen. That is Boaty McBoatface admitting defeat. And with that sorted out, it was time to address the C3's practicality. To answer this, we've come to France, where an armed robbery is in progress.
Burglars anglaises avec visage horrible are maintenant making their escape in a red 1972 De Tomaso Pantera GTS.
Ouais, j'ai à vous, 5x5.
Oui.
Au-dessous et sautier. Right. God, that looks tricky. Oh! Right, onto the straight. All around the world, police forces normally have pretty good cars. The Americans have Crown Vics, Germans have BMs, Italians have Alphas. But France has always been a bit of a burgling free-for-all because you knew that you were only ever going to be chased by Inspector Clouseau in a diesel Renault Megane. Well, not today, because I'm in an Aircross and I've got a moustache. Here we go! I caught up with them. Oh, heavens! Oh, damn it! It was beginning to seem that despite my best efforts, I wouldn't be able to catch the Pantera. But then, when all seemed lost, the Citroën played its trump card and didn't break down, whereas the Pantera reverted to type and did. There you go, son. Oh, God. He's using hair dye. Anyway, it's now time for the final test, the big one. The answer to the question I'm asked 5 or 6 times a day. Italy is a difficult one. It's out of the way. Powerful and talky. But what really matters on a job like this is traction. Go. And that's where this knob down here comes in. It engages something called the grip control system, and that sounds like a gimmick, but it isn't. Clawing away. No elephant could do this. I am zooming up here. Hurry up! Christ, if I go over the edge now. There we go. Finally, the border moved into view. Come on, little aircross! There you are! Clever car! So there we are, faster than itself at the test track, strong enough to pull a ship, big enough for the entire Jolly family and a horse, and better at invading Italy than an elephant. Really? What a machine. Funky little car. Very good.
Are you all right? In the head, I mean.
What do you mean?
We learned nothing.
You did? You learned it could get to the top of that mountain even though it doesn't have four-wheel drive?
Yeah, but what about things that matter to people who buy that sort of car? What about, you know, boot, interior, space?
I did boot.
Okay, safety, insurance group, all that.
It's a bit boring.
I mean, OK, let's... isn't that Citroën basically, tell me if I'm right, the same car as the Vauxhall Crossland?
It is.
Yes, it is. Good point. So, for instance, would you buy one of those instead? Good.
Well, you can't have the Vauxhall with the grip control system, so it's no good as an elephant.
No, the elephant test isn't actually relevant. Is there not something... OK, the Vauxhall, is it... How easy is it to vacuum out the interior? There you go.
I knew you were going to mention that. So what I did was I took the Vauxhall down to knows a thing or two about vacuuming, none other than Sir Dyson. Can you get that bit in there? Any good?
Brilliant.
Is it?
Very easy. Brilliant.
James Dyson doing a test, an important test for us there. Actually was James Dyson.
Just a minute.
What?
Sir James Dyson is developing a new solid-state battery.
Yes.
He is working on the future of global personal transport.
Yeah.
And you've wasted his whole afternoon vacuuming out the interior of a Vauxhall.
Yes.
You have literally speeded up the end of the world.
Yes. Yes, I have, and on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Goodbye. Thank you, and coming up in this incredibly exciting show, a young woman changes a wheel. An older woman drinks some lager. And Richard looks at a book.
Look at that.
However, we begin with a film from James May, who's in his 80s.
What?
No, wait, sorry. We begin with a film from James May about the 80s.
Yes. Thank you. The 80s, a time of marvellous excess, you know, Gordon Gekko and big shoulder pads and, of course, incredible supercars, the greatest of which, without question, was this one.
The Ferrari Testarossa was excess on wheels. Be it looks, attitude, or even size.
When this car came out, people were absolutely aghast at how wide this car was. I don't mean wide like Del Boy, I mean wide as in width. It was enormous, especially at the back. And it simply oozed charisma from every one of its slatted panels. It was unquestionably the only car that could star in Miami Vice. Away. The price of this car when it went on sale in 1985 was £62,666. That is, as I'm sure you know, the number of the beast. Oh, that's interesting. And when you unleashed this 5-litre V12, it would do 180 miles an hour. That was an astonishing figure for the time. Oh no. Thank you, Baptist.
In fact, Enzo Ferrari loved that show so much, he actually gave its star, Don Johnson, his own Testarossa. And Don was just the tip of the celebrity iceberg.
Rod Stewart had one, Elton John had one, Mike Tyson had one, O.J. Simpson had one, and presumably wore driving gloves. If the 1980s were the era of excess, then, well, this was the perfect car for the era.
I'm afraid Mr. May has just been wasting your time, rather, because that is not the ultimate 80s supercar. This is. For sheer over-the-topness, nothing comes close to the Lamborghini Countach. Alongside it, the Testarossa looks like a family hatchback. If you think the Ferrari is wide, this is even wider. And the Testarossa's doors don't open like this. This version of the Countach, the LP5000, was launched in 1985 specifically to put the Testarossa back in its box. Here we go! 26 miles an hour, or to be precise, more than the Ferrari. Thing is, supercars, to me, are all about being the ultimate. Doesn't matter what that is, but it has to be an ultimate. And this is the ultimate bedroom wall poster car. When I first saw 86 miles an hour. Or to be precise, more than the Ferrari. Go, go, go! Thing is, supercars, to me, are all about being the ultimate. Doesn't matter what that is, but it has to be an ultimate. And this is the ultimate bedroom wall poster car. When I first saw one of these as a kid, it lit a flame in my heart. And when I saw one today, the middle-aged man, that same flame roared into life. I look pretty cool. Oh no. Oh, for God's sake. And this incredible machine came from a company that didn't have half the resources of Ferrari. Let me give you an example. This car might look super aerodynamic, like a missile, but in fact, it never saw the inside of a wind tunnel. They couldn't afford to put it in one. So instead, they ran a prototype up and down the motorway with bits of wood stuck all over it. I love that. Oh, hello. Here he comes.
Off you go.
Go!
Here comes the mid-table then. Oh, gosh, it doesn't feel so good, but it does.
Eventually, we pulled over so we could continue arguing face to chest.
Oh, the brakes on. Brilliant.
On the line.
Right. Oh, that's not... That doesn't help much in there.
You can't see behind you, can
No,
you?
I just want to be really accurate, and you can help with that.
That's in the way, and that's in the way. That's why the early ones had a periscope.
Unable to agree on anything, we decided to take a more intellectual approach by having a drag race.
Now, on paper, the Lamborghini is faster, definitely. But, as we've already observed, Lamborghini were a bit fast and loose with their performance figures back in the day. So now, finally, we can find out for real. Oh, my God. Here we go.
It was a privilege, wasn't it? Yeah.
Couple of things I think you forgot to mention in that film.
Hang on a minute.
What?
By attacking those cars, you are destroying the very foundations of everything we love and hold precious.
And now it's time to destroy them a little bit more by seeing how slowly those cars go round the Ebola-drome. Look at that lunging and pitching there as he heads on to the isn't. Bringing out that flat 12. Back towards old lady's house, lumbering towards substation. Just feel the sheet to go. And across the line. She's absolutely nuts. Sliding a Testarossa. I wouldn't do that for all the tea in China.
Technical point that might confuse the viewers. You just said the raw from the flat 12,
Yeah.
which is sort of right, but I said V12.
I knew you did.
Which is also sort of right, because it's not a boxer, so it's a 180...
Get a bloody move on. It's a flattish V12. Anyway,
Flattish.
it's now time to see how the Lambo got on. Easing off through the second curve on the straight. On the power towards your lane here. And now the toilet wrestled back towards old lady's house. Now the damp dash towards substation. And there we are across the line.
Brave. Brave.
Right. There's a new breed of small hot hatchback. And to find which one is best, we took the grand tour to that back in Oxfordshire. And this is what we'd assembled. I've brought the new Volkswagen Polo GTI, which has 197 horsepower. Richard Hammond has brought the new Ford Fiesta ST, which also has 197 horsepower. James May has brought the new Toyota Yaris, which has a ridiculous name, the how do you say that?
Gruminer.
It isn't Gruminer. There's no at the end. It says Grum.
Yours is a brown car.
It's not brown.
That is brown.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It isn't. It's mushroom.
The cameramen know about colour. Is it brown?
It's brown.
It's definitely brown.
It's
brown.
not. It's mushroom. At this point, we decided that instead of arguing about which car was best, we should do some actual tests, starting with a pursuit race. Go.
Quite scary through here. Speed is the answer. This is brilliant. Drive carefully. That's it, keep going, keep going. Oh, look at that for a tidy line.
Several laps later, both of us were still the same distance apart.
It's just occurred to me, we both have the same knowledge of this track. We both have 197 horsepower. This race may take a while. However,
Brakes are fading. I can feel them fading a bit. They do get hot.
mine, meanwhile, had got smoky hot. So, much to the annoyance of our colleague, we decided to call it a draw.
Can I just say, if this was a proper race rather than a catchy-up race, I'd now be in the lead because I treated my car properly and didn't overheat the brakes.
Have you heard this?
I did hear that.
But you don't pause
So, in
in
other
a
words,
race.
if you drive slowly, you win.
Yes, because my brakes aren't overheating. I could still be
You
going
never
round.
went more than 28 miles an hour.
Rubbish! When did you watch a motor race on the television, on Grandstand or whatever? And they said, "Oh,
Rather
we're just
than
gonna
listen
have
to any
horses,
more
cars
of
and
May's
cars."
bizarre theories on motor...
Let's do this.
A 2-litre turbo.
3, 2, 1, go. Flat out, yeah?
Yes!
Oh, what?
A victory for the fat boy!
That can only mean that VW have got their figures wrong. Again.
This surprising result called for a bit of a debrief. The mushroom-coloured Polo
Brown.
The brown VW has
won. Actually, I've got to be honest, I am quite surprised by its
I'm slightly
astonishing
surprised.
victory.
It is really annoying and there's nothing.
Text from Mr. Willman. You idiots.
Nice.
Kind?
Stop banging on about double clutch gear. Once we'd explained this to James, we left the test track and began our new youth-friendly road test.
Now that's bollocks. Go. Very quick. You've got to love that. Oh, for God's sake. Hello. Oh. This one's down from here.
Oh, God.
Oh, oh. When did that happen? Right fast.
Once we'd explained this to James, we left the test track and began our new youth-friendly road test.
Why? We're off. Oh, gotta keep the pressure on. Drive carefully.
Apart from you drinking plastic, which is evil, I thought that was all going rather well, the test appealing to young people.
Yeah, we'd talked about carbon dioxide and polar bears and expressed our support for the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the bit where the juicer blew up in my face, obviously it was all going right. Let's do this.
But unfortunately, Mr. Willman said we hadn't got the idea at all. No. And that to really appeal to millennials, we had to somehow get our cars in the Mail Online.
Now, this was a bit of a problem for James, who claims he's never read the Mail Online.
I haven't.
You're not really... Here we go! Yes, and then the winner would be the person who got the most amount of those pictures